we convened on. I call the regular meeting of the Duluth Community Services District Engineering Committee for Tuesday, August 11th, 2020 at 5 p.m. Call to order. Roll calls. Looks like everybody's here. Raymond, Dave, and
Mike and Ray.
Everybody. Kat, Keith. We missed anybody?
Steve here?
I'm here.
Okay. I don't see any, is there any public comment? Do we have anybody online from our Zoom portal?
We do not.
Okay. Okay, so let's move on to item C on approval of the minutes. I had a couple questions, but I think we can approve the minutes and I can address those in upcoming sections. Did you have any questions on the minutes, Ray?
No.
Okay, so we'll move to approve the minutes for item C. Road reconstruction projects. Item D, a report by our district engineer on the status of current road reconstruction, FEMA funded projects, Sandia Creek and Via Vaquero. Dave, would you like to report, please?
Okay, just to refresh your memory, you know, we had the environmental all ready to go out and distribute, and then FEMA kind of changed the project on us, and so we had to resend the crew out there to go look at it, the downstream end, because that wasn't being touched, and now it's going to be all removed, and so that we can get paid for that. So they've gone out and done all their reports, and now they're preparing all their mapping, their GIS mapping that they're with the new stuff in it. And they will have a final jurisdictional report to us by next week on that. And then it will be able to, then it will be able to submit to all the agencies for their review. And most likely that'll start in September when they'll send that stuff out. So that's going to be a 3-month process. So that's going to take us into the rainy season. You know, we'd always talked about not knowing when it's going to happen. So right now I would say construction won't go on until springtime. So that's the
For Sandia Creek and Via Vaquero? Is that what you're?
Sandy Creek Via Vaquero. So that's all I have on that.
I have a question. Are we using Ultra Systems on the Sandia Creek project? Is that who did the environmental?
Yes.
And okay. And then, so what, but my question is then on Buena Vista, which you're going to come up with in a second here, we're using the environment, we're using agency recon. Why are we using two different environmental companies?
Well, because I haven't been happy with our response from Ultra Systems on this one. They've been very, very slow. I don't like to reward people that are slow. So Rincon and these people are the two big firms that we like to use. So it was a no-brainer to go to the other one and say, hey, can you help us out? And so, go ahead.
I remember at one of the engineering committee meetings, Mrs. Jones was present, and she works with that firm, lives on Avenida del Oro. And so we talked a little bit, all of us in the committee meeting, and then Dave got it. So there's somewhat have an interest in Duluth as a community. So
yeah, and the lady that we talked to does noise studies and stuff like that, which really isn't even part of what our project is. But you know, she's part of the Rincon team. But those are the two firms that we would use.
Prior to that lady coming to the meeting, had you ever used recon before?
Oh yeah, all the time. Like I say, those are the two firms that we go to. because they're a good sized firm. They typically are very responsive to us. But the Sandia Creek, they've been slow the whole way, even talking. I even went over ahead and talked to her boss about how slow they were. And he had excuses, but, blamed coronavirus. I said, no, they were slow even before that, and
So how long how long does it typically take to do what they were supposed to do that you think they took too long to do? How long have they taken? What's the time and where are they at on that time frame?
well, Rincon is probably almost caught up with the other project as far as timing and stuff goes. And so typically it's a 6-month process, but Sandia Creek we've been working on for over a year or more. So I just wasn't happy with their performance and I didn't want to reuse that. But I have used Rincon many, many times, and I have both. So they're both good firms in the past.
Did the fact that the FEMA project ended up being bigger than we thought it was going to be, did they have to do this? Did they do the study twice?
Yeah, they had to go back out there, but I mean, they had to go back out there and look at, the last 40 feet of the project, which shouldn't have taken them as long as it has because there's not much. I mean, it's all roadway and concrete and stuff. It's not like there weren't any more wetlands in it and all that, but you have to dig a little bit into the wetlands and area. So it did, yeah, but they had to go out and send everybody back out there. Now their team they send out, I mean, it's 6 to 7 people by the time they're done with all their different things they look at. So yeah, it all adds up and takes forever. Environmental though has always frustrated me, on every big project or project like this. It's always been hard to push them around. They go to their own drummer, even.
I get it. Well, what let me ask you a question. Has anybody kept Todd at Myriad Development in the loop on this? I mean, those guys did this job a year ago.
Well,
they're going to be looking at next spring or.
Yeah, well, Keith set up a meeting with environmental people in Rincon to go out in the field, and they were basically telling them how they were going to build it. And so that was, when was that, Keith? June? July?
Yeah, that was July. We met out there, myself, Michelle, and rep from Myriad Development, and just clarified the footprint of the construction change. And really the only difference was the addition of 3 more trees in the bank. The impact in the stream bed really doesn't change.
Yeah. No, it doesn't. And so there wasn't a lot to that, but getting them just to get out there took like 3 months. Was horrible.
Okay, well, if anybody have any questions on item D? If not, we'll move on to item E. The 2020 slurry seal project in various locations, the report discussion regarding the project. You want to go ahead with that, Dave?
Sure.
Or does Jim want to do that?
Dave,
I can start. We had our board meeting last time where they approved the contract, approved a budget up to $675,000 total for everything. We had sent you should have got an email today. You may not have a chance to look at it, but in your email, you'll see a bunch of the streets that Steve wants to add to the restriping, because we had $75,000 for restriping. So we added up what we spent plus another $25,000. That gets us right close to the budget to restripe. And then I have $50,000 worth of slurry seal work that I'm also going to do. And most likely I'll do some of these streets. I haven't finalized that completely, but I'm going to meet with the contractor hopefully this week and kind of go over everything with him and get a schedule for him to start construction. I think he was gearing up for doing it out there in September, and probably being done in like a month, you know, because they go pretty fast on these things. And so that's all going to be gearing up here real quickly.
I got a question. Is this sheet you sent out that says, here are the streets available to choose from? But we're planning on doing all of these, aren't we?
Well, yeah, because they all add up to the amount that he has left.
Okay.
And he's got it broken down per zone. And then I'm going to do the same. So yeah. So yeah, it's in there. So yeah, those are the streets, and that gives if we do all these streets, Steve, your restriping covers quite a bit of the area in the last couple of years that we've done.
If we do that list, that'll pretty much do everything in the community. I mean, that's, you know, the only thing that was any sort of an issue was we have more streets in one zone than all the rest. So while we have enough money in the contract to do more streets, we don't have enough money. You know, we're supposed to spread that like amongst the different zones. So we might have a couple of streets that are hanging out there that do or do not get done, but it's pretty much going to take care of almost all your streets.
Jim, how strict are we at that on, can we borrow money for next year for a zone so that we can do it all at one shot and save some money, or do we have to be exact?
Kind of depends on how much you're talking about. What are you thinking here?
I don't know, Steve, how much over would you be willing to borrow?
I don't know the number exactly, but I'm saying it's probably in the you know, $10,000 to $15,000 range, and that's kind of like what a zone of that size gets, like 12,000 or something a year, or, you know, it's that close. I mean, it's worth, I think, looking at it, you know, because you're basically borrowing it about 10 months ahead of when the money's actually available. And you don't want to call a contractor back out. You sure don't want to let everybody get their, and you don't want to let everybody get all their streets striped except for 2 or 3 streets and say, well, you guys have to wait another year because.
No, it isn't that strict. We just need to look at what you need. Okay. And find the way to do it. You know, it's roadway rehab also is involved here. So you can throw some over there, or we can move some blurry into a zone. You know, I mean, 15,000 is not a problem. If you needed 150,000, that might get a little tricky.
It's a small amount.
So yeah, of course that'd be great, because if we got this great price, we can find a way to do it.
Okay, all right.
Is there anybody that we need to ask? I mean, what do we do? The board decides to spend money that we don't have in the zone ahead of time, or is there, who do we?
That would take a board action, but I'm thinking for 5, 10, or 15.
Yeah, that'll start a precedent. You know, next year we're going to need striping too. I mean,
it's in the budget every year, yeah.
Yes.
So I don't know. That's why we got to look at it. These are things should have been talked about beforehand.
What striping do we need next year? What are you saying, Mike?
Well, I don't know. We striped last year, didn't we?
Yeah,
no,
every year.
No.
Oh yeah, it's every other year.
We didn't stripe last year, and we striped 2 years worth of work this year, and so between what we had striped 2 years ago and what we're doing now, we're pretty much restriping the whole community.
Right, I get that. It's a great plan. I'm just saying, is it, you know, you guys might be able to find a way to do it, but I'm just saying, do we want to start setting a precedent for spending money that we don't have in different zones and borrowing ahead and all that?
No, we're not going to do that. You're right.
Let people go a couple of streets. Nobody's going to complain. They probably haven't had it striped, and if it needs striping, it hasn't been striped in years. Most of the people, I've never heard anybody call up and say, can you please stripe my road? I mean, this is kind of like putting out, you know, this is like putting earrings on a hog. What we're doing is we're painting the roads and we're striping them, but we're not fixing them. So anyway, but if you guys can find a way to do it, I mean, I know the economy of scale is going to be nice, but I don't see how you spend. I don't know. I mean, I'd have to go back and look at prior years and see if have we spent it like that in the past, Jim?
Say again?
Have we borrowed from the future?
No, that's why I'm saying, I don't know why we're talking about this, Steve, because these need to be looked at and there may be a way to do it, but I gotta see what you're doing and we're not borrowing for zones. I told you that before. So, if we can do it, we'll do it because we're gonna, use the good price, but I need to see what you're talking about.
Right,
And no, we're not gonna be, I mean, no, it's for $10,000, we can, if it's 150, that's a
No.
whole different issue.
no, it's not in that, it's more like the first one. So let me put together what the overage is, what streets are that we would be not doing and what that would roughly cost. And then you guys can make that decision.
And
But I
then
think,
we'll have another committee meeting by then anyway, so we can bring it up there.
Yeah, could you also, let us know where those streets are? If
yeah,
the thing's way out at the end, way past out where Gene Bianchi lives on a dead end road. They can, 4 people use it a month. We could wait a year. If this happens to be the main intersection, that's different. I mean, we could look into it, but some of this stuff that we're doing is just needs to be looked into, I think.
well, Mike, some of those streets that what you might say are a little bit out in the wild and don't get heavily used, the striping lasts longer than 1 or 2 years because nobody's driving over it and wearing it out. And B, it's in a zone that has plenty of money to do it. So you'd be striping a bunch of streets around one of those streets, but not striping that street. I mean, you have the money in that zone to do it. Like I said, but there is one zone that's got a lot of streets and it is the one that we had to leave a few out of. But I'll itemize it out so it's real clear for everybody. And then you guys can take a look at it and see.
What zone are you talking about that has a lot of streets and not a lot of money?
I think it's zone 5, Keith. Is that the one that's kind of by?
That's the zone I live in.
Yeah, zone.
Yeah,
zone-
Mike's in zone 5 and it has a
4.
lot of spread out streets, and zone 4 probably has the
4.
most
Yeah.
miles of road.
Yeah, it's probably it's zone 5 or zone 4 that it gets about 12,000 or something a year. And I know that we just couldn't do every street in that zone, kind of thing. But I'll itemize it for you guys, and so it's real simple. Then it'll be an easy call. You say, yeah, let's figure out a way to do it, or no, we'll just skip those streets and wait 2 years.
Okay.
Thanks, Steve.
Good idea.
Okay, is there any more discussion on the slurry seal project? Yeah, item E from anyone? Ray, do you have anything to say? Did you say no or yes?
No, I'm,
Just to summarize, so the committee is in agreement with going forward with doing the additional slurry and the additional striping up to the budget limits. And that would be then to the board. So it would be a change order to the contract that you approved last month with the bid amount, slurry and striping.
Yeah, they approved us to spend up to 675 at that meeting, including all this type of extra work.
But we're putting this change order on the board agenda for a week from now, right?
Right.
Is that what we're in agreement with? Okay.
Yeah, we
Right.
gotta make it clear. So everybody's on the same page of what we're doing.
The change order, you mean adding all of these on this sheet here?
Right. The ones that we have money to do, we'll put on a change order and present it to the board. This is where we're gonna spend some extra money on striping within the striping budget. Yeah, that was previously approved, but here are the street names.
Okay, so if the committee agrees, then we'll put it on the agenda and that'll be the change order to the contract.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds good. Ray, you on board with that?
yes,
Okay, moving on to item F, Buena Vista Reconstruction Project Report on Status of Design and Environmental Issues. And that's Dave.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see, they've been working like crazy out there. And they're finalizing their report and will be submitted to me this Friday. And after the report gets reviewed, It'll then be sent out for a notice of exemption on a few things, and then it'll get filed. Then it'll get filed with the proper people for the 404, 401, Water Quality Control Board, and everybody else out there. And so they're moving along fast. So like I say, they'll be ready to submit it after we review. So most likely that'll be submitted in September also.
What's,
So
what's the 404 and 401 you said? What's that?
404 is your stream bed. You know, you're in a blue line stream.
Okay.
401 is a water quality. And then there's another one, don't recall the exact number, stream bed alteration on it. And that's where you go and do, probably Ray knows, is that a four, let's see,
So-
406 or something? The stream bed alteration?
I don't know.
It's a certain
So-
number.
I mean, it depends on what, federal, state, it's, 1600, 404, 401. Yeah.
Yeah, they're all in there. And so they're all part of the government and they all have their specialties. Kind of like when we send the environmental people out, there's 6 or 7 of them. Well, there's up to like 5 or 6 agencies that they're all independent that all review these. So you got the Fish and Game, Fish and Wildlife, Corps of Engineers, Water and the Water Quality Control Board are the ones that all look at this stuff to see what you're doing and make sure you're not killing invasive plants, animals, habitat where creatures make their home in the embankments. They don't want you to kill that, And what they do is they're looking for, okay, here's all your problems. Now you have to mitigate those problems on either a 3-to-1 ratio, 5-to-1, or sometimes 10-to-1 ratio to go somewhere else because you're disturbing what they consider the existing land. Even though this road was there at one time, it's been washed out so long, they have to, when things are growing in it, they have to sit there and go through it all and like, hey, there's creatures living in there. You let an endangered species, it's a home for them now. You got to take care of it. And either you do a couple of things like you go to another area that needs restoration and you pay for that, or you put your money into a big bank fund where with the county, and then when they have a big project come up, they use that. So you're kind of buying into the mitigation measures, through that.
What you're basically saying is that the fact that Buena Vista has been washed out so long, and that it was denied by FEMA the first go around, and then when you guys appeal, Wildan wrote the rebuttal to try to get OES to approve it so they could send it to FEMA. So you should be very familiar with the whole thing. So are you saying that it's a whole new set of issues now because we didn't go in there and fix that with our own money, and we've waited this long? Now we've compounded the problem.
Well, one thing nice about what they're looking at is they haven't found any endangered species or critters in there. The plants are pretty minor. There's some stuff in there. So it's going to be actually a pretty minor fix on it. But I'm just saying they have to go look for all that stuff, and they have to go out there. They do some test sites. They look in holes. They dig up stuff. That's all the stuff that they've been doing out there. Because it's been sitting there and things have been growing. Their preliminary stuff that they showed they didn't find any of the endangered shrimp that are in the area downstream or something. There's a few key things in the area. Certain types of plants aren't up in that. It's 116 foot long reach where these pipes are. So in one sense, it could have been worse by things moving in there and growing. The same sense is not that bad because they didn't find a whole lot. So you're right that because of all this delay and stuff, things grew in there, but luckily it's poison oak and all the stuff from the local trees and stuff that aren't necessarily, that
They're
aren't in,
good stuff.
yeah. So, you know, it's not like they're gonna cause us great grief, but any environmental job, they're gonna come up and say, well, you have to fix something because you're going in there and tearing up stuff. So,
Like, okay, so that's a 3 month, another 3 months for that one.
yep.
How are the, I remember, seem to recall a few months back, I don't know how long ago, we had some visitors from resident visits when we had a board meeting. A couple guys came out, were complaining about, or trying to find out what's going on out there. Have we heard any more rumblings from the residents in that immediate area?
No, but coincidentally, yesterday, the person that came last, the very last person who lives, his driveway is right there on the north side. He sent me an email wanting to know what's going on, and somebody painted, I think it's Edison, on the ordinance or whatever on the street. So I'll be emailing him back probably after this meeting. I'm going to invite him. There's so much going on, really positive in his direction. Have him call me, you know, just kind of give him an update on where we are. And the people painting his pavement, we're just talking. I think he thought that it was us and that something was happening out there. And it's some work Edison's doing, is what I heard afternoon. Anyway, it's coincidental. You asked, and he wrote saying, you know, essentially what's going on and who's painting the road.
Yeah, I used to get a bunch of emails from people, but I haven't heard anything lately.
It's been, you know, we haven't had any since whenever we talked last about it. And that was the first we had. So I'll get back to him and kind of bring him up to speed. I mean, from his perspective, it's going real slow, I'm sure, but at least it's moving, you know, so he should be happy about that.
Any more issues? I mean, any more talk on item F, or we can move on to Steve.
Hey, Mike.
Presentation on the traffic. What?
Hey, Mike, just while we're on the topic, Jim was saying he was going to contact the property owner. I did take a look at that out there today. You're correct in that. They're just the Edison station markings from the survey that they did district-wide. That's all he's seeing out there.
I think he was hoping that meant construction was beginning tomorrow.
I fielded a few of those phone calls of people that think we're getting ready to do something.
Yeah. So I'll let him know.
Okay.
Okay, so then traffic issues, presentation by traffic engineer regarding speed limits, weight limits, and traffic issues. Steve?
Your microphone's off.
Yeah, I don't hear you, Steve.
All right,
There
now
you
you
go.
hear me.
There you go.
Yeah, we're all caught up, I think, on everything. I just want to verify with Keith, did the weight limit signs get installed on Sandia Creek yet?
Yeah, all the weight limit signs and speed limit signs were all in place pretty much the next day.
Okay, very good. So Mike, all those are up and working fine, apparently. And we just talked about the striping contract, which was what I was going to report on. So my report is done.
Let me ask you a question, Steve. Remember, I don't even know what meeting it was, but it must have been a regular board meeting with Director Alessandro kept asking about the weight on these trucks. Did you know, the avocado trucks and all that? Did we finally resolve that and just realize that they're allowed to go out there if they're working out there and that they're not violating anything? I mean, you know, weight limits on the trucks.
Yeah, I thought we kind of explained it. Dave and I, in combination last meeting, I think kind of explained it that.
I thought you did, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, but I didn't want to have that same conversation again with them at the next board meeting where we go back around about that, the same subject. Okay, well then thank you for that, Steve. Can we get a report on road maintenance activities from Keith? Item H.
Oh, seems like you guys are moving fast today. Yeah, road maintenance, the guys are, it's, it's summer months, so we're trying not to start any fires. The guys are chipping and clearing the trees, working the intersections, pothole patching, and of course, the sign maintenance is just an ongoing thing with freestanding and maintenance of signs. And that is pretty much what is going on currently, probably through this month and next month.
So let me ask you a question. After you, is Pedro capable of continuing on with the normal duties of the district until they decide who your replacement's going to be? I mean, you got them educated enough to keep.
Well, as far as the infield maintenance, the guys do pretty well. They're pretty well cross-trained as far as running the equipment and acting on their own and setting up their jobs and lining out their work. And the last couple of weeks, of course, I've really just kind of handed it over to them and said, okay, guys, you don't count on me to tell you what to do. You need to go out and you need to lay this stuff out and find it. And then I've just kind of been keeping tabs on them, and they're just moving right along. They do their reports and they're taking care of their tree trimming and vandalism and stuff that people do. So they're just moving right along.
Do they just go out and look for stuff to do, or is there a schedule? I remember a few years ago we used to have that schedule, and they still be on the board wall in there where you
Still
had
there.
different things, that they did at certain times of the year. So.
Yes, they absolutely follow that. Absolutely. And like I said, there'll be tree trimming and pothole patching and things like that through the summer. And then once we start getting the fall, say mid-September, they'll start proceeding with drain cleaning and actually proceeding with catching up because we got hung up with the mowing. So they'll probably be doing something this fall. You can look to them to be doing some fall mowing. Just to get things caught up and brushed back. I fully expect you to see that.
Yeah. So say we get into the rainy season, you're gone, and there's a tree down somewhere, and somebody calls in. Will Pedro be on call to go up there and handle that? And,
I would assume so.
does he has a Class A license, or what license does he have?
Oh no, nobody has a Class A license. We just a Class C. We don't own anything big enough to have any more than that.
Yeah, we don't have any 18-wheelers.
Yeah.
Keith, you might want to tell them about the fun you had a week and a half ago up on Los Gatos and Steve's sign that failed.
Yeah.
His weight limit sign that just got posted and failed. Do you want to tell them about? I think you know.
We did have the weight limit sign up there posted at the time, and a driver in a box truck carrying multiple loads for different companies decided to come down the road anyway. And he lost control of his truck and put it into the side of the hill and laid it over. And he was carrying a silicone mold injection material in the back of his truck. And consequently, that spilled all over the road and went down the road probably close to 1,000 feet. So Hazmat had to come out, and they spent the better part of the week cleaning that up. And we've got the road cleaned up to the point that it's safe to drive on. It's been open, obviously, for a couple of weeks now. But while I've got y'all here, we are going to obviously have to mitigate a further repair on that road and probably grind, I would say, at least 3/8 off the top and then re-slurry and stripe that 1,000 feet for both lanes.
Is that Los Gatos going up into Tanaja? Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, it is. Yeah. My concern is because that they did pressure wash that silicone-based material, but although it's safe to drive on now, my concern is that it has kind of impregnated the roadway and could possibly resurface in a rainy condition. So it's timing-wise, it probably couldn't be any better. It's in the summer, and we do have a slurry contractor coming out to do a further repair on that road.
Okay,
Anyway, where it stands right now, we'll have more work to do that would be us. The county called the hazmat team through the fire department, and then, but anyway, it's our road. So now this is what I've been spending a lot of time on coordinating this because it's been turned over to our insurance company, and it is a $165,000 bill. So all the insurance companies are all running, and so our insurance company, they have a specialist that does this in San Francisco. All he does hazmat spills. And so he's fighting with all the insurance companies to take care of this bill. And then, of course, we're gonna have a bill for whatever, if we, do an overlay or slurry or whatever, the next few months.
What about the truck driver and the company that spilled it all? They don't have any comprehensive coverage for something like that if they're,
It's the issue is limits and umbrellas and all that. And actually, the deep pocket here is, and this is just, the things that they tell me in talking, but the deep pocket in this whole thing is Disneyland, because the silicone material was being delivered to a property owner in Duluth. And that property owner makes all the masks for Disneyland. And that's what this material was. So anyway, you know how insurance companies are. Well, it's the next guy's problem. And so you've got the truck owner, you got the driver. He didn't have much insurance, and then you've got the product, the company who made the product, and it's crazy. So anyway, to be continued, but it was quite a mess. And these guys really worked their tail off. Keith and Pedro and Dustin. Is Keith the first night? Weren't you guys all up there till 1 a.m?
Yeah, just about. By the time we got everything sorted out with the hazmat contractor and CHP, we were out there till about 1 a.m.
And then a few nights, I think at least one of you guys were there. I think I talked to you like 7 or 8 o'clock the next night.
I was in and out of there just working with the contractor. Once we turned the road closure over to the contractor, they mitigated it until the road was ready to reopen. But I was still out there working closely with the contractor to actually get the road reopened. I think we reopened it about 7 or 8 o'clock on a Friday night, was when we finally got the road reopened. And I was just out there. That was the late night call to you to get the last go ahead.
And then even Dave got in the act because we had to get some engineering to decide whether we could reopen the road slippery enough. Ron was out there, Dave's assistant. Dave was, I don't know, we worked about a day on that. You even had a standby bid to overlay it, for about $50,000, but we didn't have to go that route. But yeah, it was very involved that week, and everybody did a really good job, got it done. So
I think it was the first picture that Keith sent. It looked really bad, and then go, oh man, we can't leave it like that. But then the last pictures he sent, is like, oh, hey, they're still out here cleaning up, and it looked really good. So I sent Ron out there, and he said, yeah, it does look good. But he said a lot of the slurry seal that was put on there is gone. They pressured that stuff off. So yeah,
It was fortunate that the slurry seal was on there, and they were able to blow that off and kind of expose the aggregate and basically rough up the road.
yeah, and so it's in there. So yeah, that's kind of that's a steep street, and it's kind of tricky to slurry seal too, because
when did this happen? I just went up there too. I'd say it was the weekend before last. I took a drive around the district, and I went up to see the Santa Rosa deal, and went up there to Naha and so forth, and then came back down. Yeah, but I didn't notice. I'm not sure that I noticed anything out of the ordinary. But how long ago?
you wouldn't because they cleaned it up so nicely. I mean, they took all the dirt out on the side. They sprayed. And they did a nice job.
What was the date of the disaster?
That was about 3 weeks ago. So you probably did drive through where it happened. There was still some caution slow signs out there along the edge of the pavement, which we just left in place just to kind of be on the safe side. But we did have that discussion, and when they were done cleaning it up, if you didn't know it was there, you wouldn't see it.
Wow.
It just looks like a rough road.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's great. I'm glad you guys were able to do that. Is there anything else you need to report, or should we?
Nope, that's all I have.
It's lucky. Okay, so the subdivision maps and county issues, that would be Jim.
Or David, do you have a subdivision item this time?
Yeah, Jessica emailed you guys about half an hour before the meeting. It's track map 35815. This actually is at the corner of, and I'll probably butcher the names, Calamar Road and Carancho. And it's an 8-home development. And they're going to put in a cul-de-sac in the middle of it. And so probably 5 homes will tie into the cul-de-sac, and the other 3 will tie into the main roadway. Now, this came to you guys back in 2006, and we wrote letters giving it preliminary approval for the track. There's a few condition things on there. They went through and they looked at it. It sat around for a while because the owner didn't know what to do with it. She sold it. Then the new company came in and they took it to the county, and the county's getting ready to bless it. So it'll be coming through to us on there. The cul-de-sac is designed. It's all designed to our standards. It's got the right of way. It's got the right road width. It's going to have the right cul-de-sac width for the fire trucks to be able to turn around. So it meets all our criteria on that. Once this thing goes in, and so they pulled a permit for the cul-de-sac. Then once they get all that in there, and then the individual homes start doing their work, then they have to pay our roadway fee for each one. On top of that, that's $3,000 to $4,000. Forget what zone they're in. But I just wanted you to be aware that the county is getting ready to approve this, and we don't really have a whole lot to do with the approval process of this. What we have to do with is like, did they build the road to the county and our standards? The answer is yes. And can we allow driveways in these areas? And the answer is yes. And so it meets all our criteria. So I wrote them a letter saying, yeah, what they have done meets our criteria, and we're fine with it as far as the engineering goes. And then I wanted to present it to you guys again, just so that you were aware of it. I don't think the engineering committee, you don't have a lot of say in how they divided up the lots and all that kind of stuff. So I hate to say you have a lot of say in the matter, but I want to do it meets all the zoning criteria for minimum of 5-acre lots and stuff like that. So want to present it to you, and we want to present it to the board next week, just to say this is coming down the line for educational purposes and what it means and stuff like that. So that's where we are on that. It's not finalized yet, but it should be. Jessica, what do you think? September, didn't they say, or something like that?
Around there, yes.
Around there.
Mhm.
So if something changes when we need to we'll bring it back if necessary, but if not, I think it's good to go. Jim, anything else you want to say on that? No? Okay.
Keith, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Don't we have some sort of a rule about where the driveways that are going to have direct access to Carancho can be? They have to be so many feet away or have so much sight distance or something like that. We have some sort of rule like that, don't we?
Well, we do. Carancho is a limited access road. So if you have an alternate road, you have to go to that road. You cannot just arbitrarily use Carancho. But we do have a minimum sight distance of 250 feet without a variance for an approval on a driveway. I haven't seen the plans for this, but I'm assuming all the properties taking access off of the new cul-de-sac, or are they taking access off of Carancho as well?
Doesn't look like there's any access off Carancho.
Well, there's lot number 1 will have a driveway on, well, actually, now that's going on
That's
Calamar.
Calamar.
Yeah.
And then
Calamar's, yeah,
lot number 8 will come out. So there's one property that will come out on Cal Rancho.
yeah.
And it's, I don't have a distance on, oh yeah, it's over 400 feet away from the intersection.
Yeah, it's not so much the distance from the intersection, Dave, but I know that area is kind of hilly and there's some vertical crest in addition to some of the horizontal curves, so that would be the one thing I would think you just want to make sure that wherever we spot that driveway is that it's, clearing any sort of sight distance restriction from any vertical curve or anything, if there is one.
On that one, we don't even have that information because that'll get turned in with the individual lot
Right.
when it wants to build a home on it. So right now, I don't have any information on when or where that driveway is going to go.
Usually when we do a lot split like this and an improvement, the county has already directed per their plans where the driveway has to be per their plans. They usually cover it pretty well, but they obviously they have to submit some sort of a rough grading plan for each lot to show that they are buildable lots.
Yeah, and we really haven't seen that yet. That hasn't been finalized and given to us.
So at least of our worries in the district, I'll bet you, Martha Donuts, they have the whole subdivision built before we kind of just form. Anyway, so is there any other discussion about anything at all, or everybody?
No, it's all for me.
I think we did it.
Okay, Ray, if you want to say anything, Ray?
No, I'm good.
Alrighty, well, thank you guys all for coming today. Keith, you'll be at one more meeting next month, or?
I'll be at the board meeting next week.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
and what about,
One more engineering too.
yeah, I don't know how long are you gonna stay with us? Did they say?
Well, like I told Jim when I gave him the notice, I gave it 45 days. I think that it'll go. It may just go to the 31st. I may just go to the end of this month. I'm working it out with PERS, what works best with PERS. So if I go another 15 days, I might actually hurt myself doing it.
Oh, gee whiz. Yeah, no, if you're in good shape now, don't fall down and hurt yourself, whatever you do.
Try not to.
Okay, all right, everybody, thanks a lot for joining today.
Thank you.
See you next week.
Good
Thanks,
evening.
guys.
Good night.
Bye.
All right.
Bye.